Hello, everyone. Welcome to another OYNB podcast. And today I am so happy to introduce this incredible woman who I have been coaching with for some time. This lady is a powerhouse, and she has come through our Complete Control program, and she is now part of our Limitless program. And she has hit the ground running right off the bat, trying to figure herself out like we all are in this world. We are all but human, and if we have the desire and the wills to change, we will find a way. And so today I have invited my client to this podcast because she has an incredible story, and she is human, and she is willing to share her story with you so you can hopefully find something to relate with, something that maybe helps you click, because this is something we found in our Complete Control program. We have this sense of community there, a cohort that is together, and they share their stories and they make each other stronger. And these are my hopes today for this conversation, that maybe something that this incredible woman says makes a difference in you. So without further ado, I would love to introduce and welcome Susie. Thank you, Susie, for coming to this podcast. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Jen. Hi, everyone.
Oh, it's so good to have you. I know you're a little bit nervous, but who wouldn't be? This is a podcast recording. Is it your first podcast recording?
Absolutely.
Oh, there we go. Well, I'll be happy to say that we were the first one. No, honestly, I'm just so grateful that you came here today and are willing to share a little bit of your story. Obviously, I know you from the coaching program that you joined us in, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know you further and watching you grow from strength to strength. And you taking every step with a piece of humble pie all the time, just understanding that we're human, right? We all make mistakes and we learn and we move forward. And, but the fundamental feeling of that we want the change is what's going to drive us moving forward. And it has been a pleasure, and it continues to be a pleasure to watch you grow. But why don't you start with telling the audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're at, but also what ultimately brought you into this program and the curiosity around it that brought you here.
I decided I needed to do something about my relationship with alcohol, probably about 3 years ago, and didn't really know where to start. I tried some hypnotherapy, and that didn't really make much of a difference. And I was sort of just stumbling around, thinking that I should do something, but not really knowing what to do and how to manage my drinking. And I just randomly in the summer, I think it was the first week of June, it coincidentally tied in with the fact that I was also extremely worried about a very long summer break, and was wanting to navigate this long summer break differently this summer rather than how I had previously, where it always ended up at the end of the summer. My marriage was not very good, and I was in a really bad place, and I had to basically take the whole of September to recover from all of the excesses that we'd had. Anyway, you guys came. It popped up on my Instagram feed, and I was like, do you know what? I think Rory was saying something. Well, he obviously was saying something. I can't remember what it was about, but it really clicked. And I was like, do you know what? This is really timely, because I was just about to go away for these 8 weeks. I was introduced to the idea of the Complete Control program, which was 8 weeks. And I was like, this is the sign. This is something which I can really focus on and will give my summer some meaning and some accountability through the wonderful other Complete Control members. And so I was like, right, okay, this is it. I'm going to change. I'm going to start trying to change. It also coincided in the fact that it was another Monday morning, and I was hungover again and full of shame and guilt and frustration that I'd drank to excess again. And I really got the urge that I got the feeling that this was the right thing for me to do. It was really to do with the fact that it was an 8-week course. I had no idea, however, what I was going into. I had no idea the inward journey that it was going to start me on. I really just thought, for me, the joining process was, I've got this long summer. I don't want to spend the whole summer drunk. I need some help. This is going to be a miracle cure. But I didn't realize that it involved a whole stripping down of yourself. So that's how I got on the course. And I literally started the day that I arrived in Ibiza, and it finished the day that we left. So, and I'm pleased to say that I actually got through the summer, but, with lots of bumps, but a lot, so much better than I had navigated it the time before. And it wasn't just the fact that it's a summer thing, because we have a lovely lifestyle, and I seem to be going from one social event to another social event to another holiday, and I was beginning to get to a point where I wasn't actually looking forward to any of it. In fact, it was actually making me very fearful because of how I knew I would behave, because I couldn't separate the holidays or the socializing without having a glass of wine. And then knowing that would mean that I would literally spend the whole time either on holiday or socializing, either drunk or hungover, which is not joyful at all.
There's a few things that you said there that I want to pick up on and further. And I wonder how many people can relate to that. Well, going into this summer season, knowing what usually summers entail, right? There's sunshine, there is, parties, there's holidays, there's relax, there's get-togethers. And also then how many people that comes to the end of the summer, which should be a great feeling, like, yay, we've had a great summer and stuff. And instead, they might come to the end of the summer feeling like, oh gosh, I'm exhausted. My marriage is not feeling great. And I think so many people who are watching and listening to this are going to be able to relate to that, because that's something we really see with people coming into this program, is that when there is regular drinking involved to a point where we feel like, it's causing a little bit of problems, our relationships will take a massive hit, whether it's with our spouse, partner, or, our children. And so hearing those reasons for you to kind of, for that to be one of the driving forces to book into this, I'm sure that many people can really relate to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And like a lot of people, it's so social, and we usually host quite a lot of events, or we've got lots of people coming and going, and it's almost like we get one group of people, you have a lot of fun, they leave, they get to go home and recover, and then another busload come in, and then you repeat it, and then that keeps going week after week after week after week. And so I think that's why I was getting so fearful, because I knew I couldn't, what I could not understand is how I could do all of that without alcohol. I was like, I can't, because of the perceptions around alcohol and other people's perceptions of, well, they're coming to stay with me. I can't be the host and go, well, actually, we're not going to go out tonight because I want an early night and watch Netflix or something. They're coming out to see us for their holiday, as well as it being my holiday. But what it ended up being was this like permanent treadmill of us entertaining people and them being able to, they having a wonderful time. Also, also myself having a lovely time, but they're not getting any time to go, okay, now I can reset, and then you go again. But also realizing that if I wasn't going to drink, what other people would then think, and thinking, well, if I don't drink this year, they might not want to come back next year because they'll think that it's boring, Susie. So I sort of put myself on this huge pressure of, you've got to be the most fun one because you've got a really fun place to hang out with, and it's people's holiday. So I didn't establish very good boundaries, which, from what I've learned in complete control, is something which is completely in your own head, and no one else would care one bit if if I, this is what I know now. That's what I know now. Yeah. It's what I didn't know then at all. I thought that I had to be on form. But what was happening, Jen, is that I was not just on form, I was the most drunk person there every single time, right? I mean, always.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed now from this summer is when I'm not drinking, or when I'm not drinking nearly as much, no one else does either. It's been a revelation as to the amount that people drink versus the amount that I was drinking.
Yeah. And also how much maybe that we realized that we've been the fire starter the whole time.
Yeah.
That's something that I certainly realized when I changed my relationship with alcohol, and what many of my clients realize also is that I didn't realize how much of a fire starter to everything I was. When I took a step back, I realized that people are quite happy not to. So, but also what you're saying is, brings up a good point, that feeling of having other people come and join, and then they go home, and then another group of people come. So for anyone listening to this who already does have a take it or leave it relationship with alcohol, they're like, yeah, but that's easy. You just don't drink, right? No big deal. But it's not that easy when there is an underlying driving factor as to why we can't do that, right? And that's ultimately what brought you to complete control. And it's like, I just want to know when to shut down. This is what complete control is. People come into complete control because they want complete control.
I was going to say it, but and I wanted to understand and be able to do this socializing without having to use alcohol, and I hadn't found that answer yet. It just hadn't. I would grit in, and they were going, oh, I really want to have fun, and I am having fun, and thinking I'm really not having fun. I just want to go home, and how am I going to get through this?
Yeah. So you mentioned before that you're signing up to complete control because you knew what you wanted out of it, what you were looking or hoping for, what you were seeking, but you didn't realize the work. So tell everyone a little bit about what the experience was for you coming into this program, what you thought about it before, what your initial thoughts were meeting people, complete strangers off the bat that were going to be, that we say on the first call, like, hey, get familiar with these people. They're your people for the next 8 weeks.
I was not prepared for how in depth an analysis you were going to get individually during those 8 weeks. The first call, if we're going into specifics, was extremely daunting for someone who hates being on camera, and something that I'm working on, which is why I'm doing this today. It was really reassuring to see. I think there was 19 of us on the call, and you could see everyone else was thinking exactly the same thing. It was like, well, this is interesting, but we all formed quite strong relationships very quickly because you could tell immediately from the introductions with people. I mean, what a diverse group of people, and I'm sure all of your courses are, because they're from around the world. But we all tied in with exactly the same thing, which is like, we are at the point in our lives where we know we drink too much, but we don't know how to break the habit of thinking that the only way you can enjoy yourself is to drink. It was lovely to see a whole sea of people who are in exactly the same boat as yourself.
Yeah. Complete different walks of earth, right? From all over the
exactly. Like, didn't matter what everyone. I mean, we weren't all carbon copies of each other. We were all such a diverse group of people, all wanting change, and everyone was a real support to each other. And as you know, that there's 2 weekly calls, and those weekly calls I was really looking forward to. The first one I was dreading, obviously, and it was really terrifying. And then you get really used to it. And I've used that word already, but accountability, you don't want to be the person on the Thursday morning call saying, well, actually, yeah, I got absolutely smashed last night and I'm really hungover. Because what's the point? You want to be really putting yourself in there. And I felt like there was a real common theme there where everyone really wanted to succeed. And I'm not saying we didn't all have bumps in the road, because I'm sure everyone did. And people were very honest as well. But there were some glorious moments with people who were realizing that they were because they weren't drinking, their relationships with their kids were so much better, and their weekends were full of activities with their children, with them being completely present. And that was a really strong theme that I connected to too, to be fair. So that support network, that group of people was wonderful. And actually, I really missed it when it stopped, actually, after the 8 weeks. It was a bit like, oh, where have they gone? They're not there anymore. It was a bit like, wow, that was a bit of a dead stop. Some of us did try and keep in touch, but it's quite difficult. So going back to your original question, the inward journey, so it's not just the community which you built for us, which was so positive for all of us. The individual sessions that we had with all the coaches, where you took us on this, I mean, it was daunting. The first time when you get the first workbook, you're like, wow, that's a lot of things for you to do. And I'm obviously not going to have enough time to do that. I mean, yeah, that's your first thing. It's like, well, when am I going to fit that in? And then you're like, well, actually, it's not that difficult. And then you're very, complete control is very good at cutting it down into bite-sized chunks so that you're not spending longer than half an hour doing what you should be doing, what the course dictates that you do. And it was all into I can't remember the very first one, but it was noting, I think the first one was noting down your whys. Why are you here? Why do you want to change your relationship? What is it that is wrong? And that was incredibly powerful. And I think I remember a talk with Yuri saying, put it down in your journey, write on your journal, put it on the fridge. What are your whys? And keep going back to what are your whys. And that was extremely important. And then that then leads to all sorts of other issues which you have never thought about why you're drinking in the first place. And there are lots of different therapy sessions where I remember one particularly strong for me was all about your younger self and your inner child, which I'd never ever thought about before, but had anything to do with the fact that I was drinking. But that created a huge moment for me where I was like, okay, yeah, I was a very insecure child. I was bullied. I did have a stutter. I did find social situations difficult. And then connecting the two with, okay, but when I was 14, I discovered alcohol, and that was a marvelous coping mechanism. Like, it was the best thing in the world. It was like, well, hey, I don't have to cope with these insecurities anymore. I can just go and drink. And I literally used that until June this year,
right?
On my 50th year. And it was just like, no, this coping mechanism does not work for me anymore. So I don't know if I've digressed a little bit, but it's all to do with the complete control course information and the teaching that we were given, and the counselling that we were all given, and from the coaches. I mean, you spend a lot of time, and you have a trauma week as well, and I think that was on week 2. That was for someone who didn't think I had any trauma. I hadn't broken a leg or had a ski accident, or I don't know, hadn't had any major big events in my life. I hadn't realized what actual trauma doesn't need to be one big event. So realizing that was huge for me. So and how that then created the numbing, not just from the socializing and the social anxiety, but also to cover up things in the past that you hadn't really addressed.
Of course.
So, yeah, I mean, it's created a marvelous inward journey, which is rocky at times, glorious at other times, and quite peaceful at other times, because the knowledge is power, right? You keep giving us so much more knowledge, and that knowledge, especially for someone like me who needs, I write lists constantly to get through my days. You know, that knowledge does equal power. It equals like you can change because you know why you've been doing this. And all the stuff on neuroplasticity, sorry, put my teeth back in, and growth mindset and, you know, habit changing and all this sort of things, which for someone who literally just joined up on a Monday morning hungover, determined to get through the summer, had no idea that I would be having any knowledge of all this. And that's what makes you change. It's not because you're on a course for 8 weeks and you're just not drinking alcohol because you can't. It's because, you know, you're learning all the whys, which is, I think, what I started off on about 5 minutes.
Right. But there's so much in what you said there. But the whole idea of like, we sign up to something, and many people do sign up to programs or these quick fixes thinking this is going to fix me. But if they're not willing to do the work, it's not going to work, right? Then that's the thing with this program. We make you do the work. There's no way. You get reminders. We chase you, you know, there's no escaping, but it's the intensity that makes it successful. But what you mentioned there of our, the week 2, we have trauma-informed coaches who help the clients understand themselves a little bit more and help dive into the roots of the patterns that we have still today. So you mentioned when you were little, being insecure, being bullied, having a stutter, and then coming into your teens and discovering alcohol, which then either helped you feel confident, false confidence, and it also, when someone bullied you, you know, that would kind of go away. So I can see how that for a person can continue in life, in a sense of like, if we feel bad about something someone says, it can trigger those very old wounds that many people today in adult life do not realize that they are directly tied to the things we experienced when we were little and how we learned to cope with it. And then the discovery of alcohol in our early teens kind of disallowed us from ever learning to self-soothe ourselves and grow the confidence, because the alcohol kind of took care of that. Until this point, like you said, here you are in year 50 and you're like, oh, I didn't realize this was going on. So what I mean, since having that discovery, so to say, or that awakening to how our past and our experiences as younger, how that still determines how we operate today, how fast were the growth trajectory for you from understanding your own patterns and learning to self-soothe and learning to understand yourself? Tell us a little bit about
how fast from the start of the course.
Yes, exactly. From you having, let's say, that epiphany of like, oh my goodness, I can see how I went from feeling insecure and having, you know, a difficult time when I was younger, and then alcohol taking over, boom, and just without knowledge.
I think it was a real slap in the face, to be fair, on that week 2. That was a pretty okay. That was a big moment, and I wouldn't say I changed overnight, but what it did allow me to do for the first time ever, I think, in my whole life, was to be aware of self-compassion, and rather than numbing all those little Susie feelings, actually saying it's okay to feel like this, but you're not 6 anymore, you're 50, and you are a grown-up lady who is absolutely who can deal with this without the alcohol.
You're doing great, but you have ups and downs now. And I'd say this for anyone listening, even when you change your relationship with alcohol for a long time, for me it was 2018, I still have days that suck, you know, not because I'm drinking, but because life is rocky, life is tough. We still have stuff that we carry with us that we work on. We're all work in progress, right?
Actually, it's okay not to be perfect. I think that's why I was always so worried about summer and entertaining. You want to portray that you are absolutely fine. And using alcohol does help that, but lots of occasions, not when you drink too much.
That's the thing. It's understanding that even in adult form, we still have some really old beliefs about ourselves or ways of self-soothing or not self-soothing ourselves in the correct way, which will have a direct impact on how we show up. And so with the compassion for yourself now, there's something that you mentioned before, that's something that really came out of that was having that self-compassion.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
imperfection being one of these things, because when we don't feel, if we were bullied, if our confidence wasn't great, right? And then alcohol kind of helped with the false confidence for a longer period of our lives. Within that false confidence and just getting by, we will find ways of trying to make ourselves feel better, like perfectionism. Even though we don't feel great on the inside, then we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that it looks great on the outside. So that worry of imperfection, like, why would you even make anyone think that you haven't got your sugar together, your shit together? You have to edit that out. That you don't have your stuff all together because we're human, but now in an adult, in our adult self, we can kind of go, yeah, you know what, it's okay. I'm flawed. I'm confident in that. But realizing that when we feel insecure, our own personal insecurity, that shame feeling, the feeling, fear of disconnection, that it comes so deeply rooted from when we were little, when we were bullied, when we weren't confident, right? Just making those parallels of realizing that, okay, with that understanding, I can now work on myself. I can do the work and remind myself, because we regress quickly, right? We can get very triggered. Our nervous system can get very triggered. And this is often when people choose to drink. This is where they learn to self-soothe with booze, to escape. They just tap out. And with this process of you going through this program and learning about neuroplasticity and figuring out, what you need to do in order to feel better, can you see the patterns a lot easier? And do you find that it becomes quite easy to go, oh, I'm feeling like this because of that? Yeah.
So let me pick up on that, because when you were saying that, it was making me think about the first beat that we wear on the first. I can't remember how long we wear it for, which monitors your nervous system, and that to me was so important, because I didn't know that my nervous system was in a state of I was in a state of high anxiety all the time.
All the time. In red all the time. And for the listeners, we use this incredible technology that it's called First Beat, and they measure, they have to wear them for 3 days, 3 or 4 days, like day and night. So people don't always love it, but it gives such a great insight as to what goes on in here, because we can slap on a face and put some makeup on and try to refreshen ourselves so we look good, but what's actually going on the inside, that's the kicker. And I think that's been a catalyst for people in this program when they go, oh my goodness, this is where I'm at. And so your normal every day was on red, like right there.
And if I hadn't have had that, it's knowledge is power again. If I hadn't have physically seen that on my app every morning, I wouldn't have any idea. But it also made me understand the feeling that of your nervous system, which I just always thought I don't know what it was. Like maybe I just thought I was always a bit overexcited, which was the feeling that I would get before going out. And I would therefore want to have I would get ready with a glass of champagne or something before I was going out, because without me realizing, my nervous system was going, you're going out, you need to, and I was like in this high state, and I needed to calm myself down. And how I'd grown used to calming myself down to face this social situation was to have a glass of wine, and that would stop that feeling. But before wearing the First Beat and before coming on complete control, I didn't know why or what that feeling was, and so that was as powerful as Trauma Week or all the other. It's all the pieces that you provide that give us all these different bits of information, which make you able to understand and then be able to change those behaviors, because that was a really, I had no idea about things like the vagus nerve and that being connected to, your fight, flight or freeze, and, all of those, more information. It's just like, you have to be a big sponge to take it all in. It's not just the one thing, I think, that the course has given me that has changed my relationship. It's all of the information that you're constantly getting and you're constantly absorbing. You do have to become a bit of a sponge. It's not light work either, but it's fascinating work. I mean, I've really enjoyed everything that I've learned.
So did you think when you, on that Monday morning, when the head is a bit muddled, you're like, oh, this looks good. This looks complete control, 8 weeks, perfect, done. This is what I need for the summer. Did you think that 8 weeks could have such a big impact on you?
No, but I was really hoping that it would.
Yeah. No,
but I'd grasped at straws before. I think for me, I've just said that there wasn't one thing, but for that particular 8 weeks and the fact that I was away for 8 weeks, the accountability of the other complete control members, twice a week, turning up and having to face them was something that really did make my summer change. If we're being that specific about the summer and the actual course, absolutely,
yeah.
And I think I also. The other thing which I forgot to mention, I think with everyone who was coming out and be spending time with us this summer, maybe they won't come next time, because I think I must have bored them more stupid, because I just could not stop talking about it, because it was having such an impact. And they were sitting there with their rosé and whatever, and I was going, yeah, but look, and trying to explain. Because I'm a bit like that. My personality is, if I find something, I'm engaged in something, I want everyone else to know what I'm experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So, rest assured, everyone who I was with in the summer will know all about complete control. And there is good that
But I think that's wonderful. It's that ripple effect, because you never know. I always say this to everyone. Stand for what you do, and maybe that if we can have a positive impact on one person around us. And this is what our motto has always been within One Year No Beer, is that, have a positive impact on someone to try to help them transform their relationship with alcohol, and watch how their own environment changes, with them. Right?
Yeah, because of course they would have seen, that this is not the same Susie as last summer.
No, of course.
And it wasn't the Susie who would go, I'm not drinking, I'm really trying hard to enjoy myself. It was like, no, I'm fine. I'm having a really nice time. I'm not saying
you're going to ask them to get up and go for a run at 7 in the morning. They're like, don't knock on my door. No, but that is part of the wondrous part of the summer. I was doing that, Jen. I was, and I remember, Jim. So. No, and what I also loved on your holiday, you actually connected with a couple of other complete control members. One that has done it previously, and one that was in your cohort. Actually, I loved. Yeah, in the very last session. I know. We both did it on the same in the balcony, and it was wonderful. And we were seeing that a lot more. People they tend to, if there are several people, we'll say within London or in the London area or in any area close to each other, they do make an effort to go and meet up, which is more and more beautiful. And hopefully we'll get these socials launched eventually. But it's just wonderful. The connection piece of, let's talk a little bit more about that piece from the program, because you've mentioned that several times now, and how you feel that was probably, again, such an important part of you continuously showing up for yourself, because you felt the accountability, felt the support. And like we said, there's people from all over the world, different backgrounds, moms, dads, no kids, whatever professions it is. But there was, we see this, and we are on CC16 right now. We're about to launch CC17, right? So we've seen this again, and it's just continuously, the group element is so powerful. And that is a big topic that we talk about, how connection is the opposite of addiction, and how connectivity is important. And so seeing those peers within the same group, people coming into this, they've got stuff going on, but maybe they don't have enough people to talk about it with, because also you have successful people coming in here, and the more successful you are, the less people you have to talk about your problems with, right? So having that group connectivity and being able to be vulnerable, you know, is what people love so much. But it's unexpected because vulnerability, remember that for a society that has been a no-no. You know, it used to be, you know, brush everything under the rug. Don't show people your weakness. And so we drill that so hard when people join this program about the vulnerability piece. How did you find that? I mean, going from saying to be terrified on the first call, but then getting better and better, that vulnerability piece. What?
Well, I have to say, I wasn't the first one to volunteer, I have to say. And there were lots of far braver people than me. But as soon as people open up, you just get so much compassion, and there's so much to identify with. None of it is shameful. All of it is just people's truth, and that's really unifying, because everyone can identify with it. Everyone, you know, you could see, because you see everyone's faces, obviously, and you can see everyone going, "Yep, I understand that," and "Yep, got that," and "Yep, that's completely how I feel." And also, you know, you just feel like patting. You sort of wish you were in the same room and giving them a pat on the back and going, "That's awesome." It's not. Yeah. It's not something to be. I don't want to use shame again, but it. And when you begin to open up to people, it releases a whole load of that anxiety that's associated with it, because you're talking about it. And if you're talking about it to people who really do understand your situation, because they're going through exactly the same thing, it's even more powerful. You know, I wouldn't be the same if you were talking to people who weren't at the point where they, you know, they were still loving alcohol, or, you know, they were still on a, you know, a different path. But because everyone was there, and the commonality was, we want to do something about our lives. We know we're not living at our full potential, and we want to be superhuman.
Let's pause just for a brief moment. I just want to share with you some of the heartfelt feedback from our incredible Complete Control community members. Listen to this.
I don't know how I signed up. I think I just got an ad on Instagram and just got a whim, just hit the button and did a call and then signed up, and didn't really consciously think much about it. And then after that, I was like, what did I just sign up for? Wait a second here. Like, far exceeded my expectations. I'm usually extremely skeptical, so I don't know how I even signed up in the first place, but whatever it was. So it's just amazing how, like, the transformation that I've seen, and even the drinking part is just kind of it was the Achilles heel, but it's kind of just the superficial problem. And it's like, once I kind of clear that up, there's so much more possibility. And you know, the exploration discussions with Gary, with Candace, have just been so powerful, and they both kind of focus on a different area. And then with Glenn kind of looking at my data, and with my cohorts or classmates, or, you know, it's just been everything has just been so powerful and kind of supportive of, you know, completing the whole picture of how I do this. So just really grateful, and yeah. And also just feel more grateful, and not only just for all of you, but just in life in general. It's just a little bit more clarity and peace and calm and so forth. So
I am incredibly grateful for this entire program, everybody on this call, and everything that we were able to experience. I think that it delivered more than I expected. Honestly, I like I've said before, I've done a couple of like challenges and different things. And I think that this, beyond examining my relationship with alcohol and making, I think, pretty good strides in staying alcohol free. I think it taught me a ton about myself and how to like examine my habits and my thoughts and those kind of patterns and ways to approach the things that worried me the most in this experience have just been invaluable. I think I'm leaving feeling stronger in general, more self-aware in general, and just really more anchored in who I want to be and what my values are and how I can, take better steps to achieve those. So it's been fantastic for me. And then again, our team, I really appreciate all the feedback and support from every single person on this call, but my cohort as well. It's been great.
So I love everybody that I've met here. I have loved the program. I am not an emotional person like this, but this has changed my life. It has given me a life. And there's other things I need to do too. But I don't have to do with alcohol anymore. So thank you.
It's been an amazing journey, and I appreciate the professionalism. Whenever I feel the stress, there's something that I can go back to everybody, and the sharing from everybody and the professionalism of the program. So I loved it, and I've grown a lot. So, loves and kisses.
One word is transformational. That's a word that's been bandied about for decades, but in this, it is absolutely accurate. If I was to use one word, this was a great investment. It's not self-help, it's self-realization. It's super powerful, but it exceeded my expectations. Or maybe it was Sharon who said that. Or maybe I'm exceeding my expectations, and I like that.
I mean, the program has been I'm hugely grateful for the program. I think the journey for myself has been amazing. I mean, I remember telling, I don't know if it was Candace or Gary, the first 3 or 4 weeks of the program, I was like, I can't stop thinking about not drinking. It's in my head. Every day I'm thinking about not drinking. And it's like now I'm not even thinking about it. You know, it's just like my life has sort of stepped on. I'm excited about the future. Things are looking good.
I just love sharing the things people are saying about our complete control program. Okay, let's get back into the episode.
So you mentioned before in the beginning of the call, you said, coming to the end of the summer, not feeling great in your relationship with your husband, and, in general, just not feeling good. So fast forward, we've done complete control, and then you sign up to continue your coaching within our Limitless program.
Yeah.
And continue the work. Where are you at right now? And what was the result of doing the program, and what happened with your confidence, in yourself to begin with, but what impact did it have on your marriage?
It was there's been so much impact. We are in from the start, from June to where we are now, is a completely different Susie, and in all of her relationships, not just marriage. And it seems to be, as soon as you open up to all this pain actually that's inside that you've been numbing for so long, things just keep happening to you that are on the same sort of path. I don't really know how to explain that. But so as soon as we got back from the summer, I researched and we've started couples therapy, and that has been an eye-opener, like a game changer. I think every person should do that. Every married couple should be having, because you get the chance to actually fully understand each other. What I hadn't realized is how little each of us know about what goes on inside your brain. I think I probably know about 2% what goes on with my husband inside his head, and vice versa. And once again, knowledge is power, right? And it's really given us an opportunity to heal, I think, and be more joyful. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying, that we're not going to have our issues, and we obviously will. But complete control has definitely contributed. Well, it was a big driving force in me going down that route and going, there's no shame in saying I'm going to look at couples therapy. It's just a big win for both of us. And thankfully, I've got a husband who was very up for getting involved, and he's really immersed himself with it too. I think he's just so delighted that he just doesn't have a drunk wife constantly all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I cannot agree with you more there about everyone who's married could do with couples counseling. I think just like with drinking and not drinking, there's been so much stigma around therapy, right? And then And then coaching came along, and everything, oh, now everyone has a coach. It's kind of normal. But for a long time, I will go and see a therapist. Oh, that's just something, that you do. There's something really wrong. Why? Why not help us, advance in our mind or in our relationships if we want to change something, and if it's not really working, but we have the intention, then hire a professional that can help you. And that's, couples therapy is incredible. We're a huge fan, both me and we have done a couples therapy together. And I say, I recommend it to my clients often. But what I also see with clients coming through this program is they have this stance of either one or the other of the partner. They really want to go to couples therapy, but the other partner doesn't want to do it because they see it as a failure of marriage. And I think that's where society and the stigma comes from. It's like, couples therapy, does that mean you got something going on? Just like, oh, you're not drinking. Why? Do you have a problem with alcohol? No.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? It's like, that's shame. Like the world is covered in shame because we're different. Oh, why don't you fit this mold that everyone drinks and are miserable? Just be like that. Why do you want to work on yourself?
Yeah. And I know. And that's how I would have been before complete control. But what complete control really, really showed me was that alcohol and the numbing was just making me stuck in the same place. And my husband and I were just constantly going around the same circle, and we were never, ever, ever going to get off it. We were never going to get off this merry-go-round until things actually changed and we admitted, we've got to, unless we can find some external help that's right for us both, then we're just going to keep doing exactly the same thing. And we've already noticed, and it's not perfect, but we have already noticed that we can read situations so much better together now. I can look at my husband and think he's doing that because of such and such. Whereas before I'd be like, why doesn't he understand that he needs to do this? And so it's a beautiful thing, actually.
Yeah.
It's really working.
But drinking makes us emotional. We think emotionally, and it becomes very emotional, right? So we kind of remove that prefrontal cortex and reasoning and all that stuff. It's just gone. So we just become this emotional, and we regress. So if we have this underlying pain of fear or disconnect or, not feeling good about ourselves, it's going to fuel that. And then we'll take someone else's behavior and make it about us. Oh, they're doing this because of this. They don't love me. They don't support me and all that stuff. So you said something earlier about, the journey and, you're in a better place. But tell me a little bit, like, if you can identify, what was alcohol doing to you, taking from you? If you were to look at yourself, when you say, me and my husband, we used to just have the same circle. Oh, it would be the same thing all the time. What was alcohol doing for you? What was it taking from you?
It was taking away all of my. Gradually, it took away. It took away everything of who I really was, because it had numbed me so much. I'd numbed myself down completely numbed myself down. I didn't think clearly. I didn't ever wake up with a clear head. I didn't have any desire to move forward, right? I was just thinking about, it didn't get that bad, but it almost was, when's my next event? When's this when I can next go drinking? It's just, it literally did dominate everything. And so you take that out of the equation and you get such wonderful, clear thinking that your brain is reawakened. I feel like I've had a rebirth. I really do feel like I'm in this like glorious renaissance at the moment, where it's like, wow, the world is out there again, rather than going around being stuck on the hamster wheel of alcohol. Literally, I cannot say enough how amazed I've been and how much more function my brain has and how much more I want it to do and how much I know that I am capable of so much more. And it's also opened up all sorts of other things. I mean, I'm having my own individual counselling as well. And straight after this call, I'm going for a psychiatric test because actually they think I've got ADHD, which does really resonate with me with all of the problems I had as a child and my inferiority complex and thinking I wasn't good enough, etc. And my excited nature and compulsive behaviour. Like your viewers don't know this, but I go to the gym probably as much as Jen goes to the gym. You know, I get fixated on particular things, and it's again knowledge, right? So that has the fact that I went to counselling as well after the complete control was because my brain was thinking, you know, there's more to this. I need to understand. Whereas had I not done the course, I would have still been in the cycle of just drinking and not even getting underneath the layers, you know, peeling the onion that is referred to quite a lot, you know. So just so much, you know, and I've taken as a result since complete control so many really good decisions. I mean, I think I mentioned at the beginning, it's my 50th year, and in the summer I was so down on alcohol and you know, partying and socializing. Didn't know how I was going to do it, and I didn't want to have a 50th birthday, and I wasn't going to do it. And now I've just found myself, I've had 3 massive celebrations, and I've navigated it all really well without having to worry about it. So that's been a completely different mind shift. And I've made a great decision as well. You know, rather than having a big girls' weekend that I usually do each year, I went to the Mayo Clinic in Austria instead and decided that I wanted to focus on my wellness and what was good for me, and creating those boundaries and actually having to say to my friends who were naturally quite disappointed, actually, I'm not going to do that again. And I had the courage to say, this is my year and I'm focusing on me. I'm not going to just repeat because it's what everyone's expecting, because I'm not going to have a nice time. I'm going to end up in a place where I'm really sad because I don't want to be in that place. I want to be this fit, healthy, well, interesting person that I know I can be. It taught me how to change my boundaries. And with my family relationship as well, my mum and my brother and my sister, I've just had a big 50th celebration with them. And at the beginning of the year, there's no way I would have done that because, you know, our relationship wasn't wonderful. But, you know, it's all healing. It's all very much healing.
So, but just to pick up what you said about being tested for ADHD, and I can't tell the exact percentage, but we have a large number of people coming into this program who are either aware of their ADHD and that being driving factor why they drink because they want to silence their mind, or like you said, all those inferiority and complex and all that stuff that comes potentially with ADHD, right? But they're not aware that they have ADHD. We have several people like yourself who come through this, and then they've gone and they've spoken to a therapist. Obviously, that's not something that we are qualified to talk about because we're just coaches. But we always say, yeah, hey, if you're curious, because the curiosity always comes to the person, because you know you more than and better than anyone else, right? But they go, hey, I'm a little bit curious about myself, that I'm thinking maybe I am bipolar, or maybe I am ADHD or ADD, and so they become curious, and then they go and they speak to therapists, and they, you know, yes, they're right, and they've been right how long, but they realize also how much of a self-medicating purpose alcohol has had for them, because it's to one degree or another, it helps kind of put a plaster on all those symptoms. Whereas now through complete control, gosh, there's the exercise, the meditation, the nutrition, like all that stuff that we can do ourselves to help that mind, you know, get some relief from it. But if we don't know, right?
No, I know. It's what I keep coming back to. It's the knowledge is power. That's the thing that this course really does start. You know, it kickstarts in a very powerful way the process that you can continue. You can keep continuing for the rest of your life, right? I think we were saying at the beginning, you know, what did I want out of the 8-week course? You know, I wanted to be able to stop drinking, but that's not it. What I've realized is that my journey is not just to stop drinking. My journey is to know why I started and why I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And that's really where I am at the moment with it. And all these wondrous things that I'm finding out about myself. If I'm not ADHD, it doesn't matter. But I know from complete control from the first beat that I have a very highly active nervous system, and I know I am impulsive, and I know all sorts of other things. And if that transpires that I am ADHD, great. That gives me more information to go, it's okay, little Susie. It's really okay, because this is how you always have been, and you've got the tools now to deal with it rather than to just grab a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And without grabbing the glass of wine, you don't get the hangover. And what I haven't mentioned with you, Jen, actually, which was one of the other big factors, and not just the summer and how I cope with the summer, is as a 50-year-old woman, hangovers are absolutely shocking. And I could not cope with it. My nervous system was shot for days. I mean, I was tingling. I was almost shaking, and my anxiety levels were through the roof. And I didn't want to live like that. But because I was caught in the alcohol trap, I didn't know how to stop myself from drinking. But then I couldn't cope with the days afterwards. So then, because I couldn't cope with my heightened nervous system and that awful feeling, I'd want to drink again because I couldn't level myself out. And so it was just an awful mess of everything that I was doing just wasn't working, but I didn't know how to crawl out of it. Whereas this is how I did.
Yeah, exactly. And, one thing that I hear often is people ask, why you're not drinking, why you're not having a drink. I'm like, well, I don't really drink. And they go, oh, about why? Well, you're too healthy and you're overachieving and too fit and, all that stuff. There's always, they have a comment about it. I don't mind, right? And I'm sure you get the same from people like, why wouldn't you want to drink? Like, this is the only thing that we have. We need to live a little. This is the classic one we often get. Like, we need to live a little too. There's always a narrative to kind of be able to make themselves feel better. But you can also feel that underlying insecurity about having to defend something. And again, we don't demonize alcohol. It's like, hey, we have a take it or leave it relationship. I mostly leave it because it impacts me so badly, right? But that's me. So where are you now with alcohol in the sense of knowing where it's at and learning more about yourself and your compulsive triggers and all that stuff? Coming into this, you just wanted to be able to take it or leave it, have complete control. How far along on that journey do you feel like you are right now?
Well, talk to me last week and I would have said I'm right back to where I was at the beginning. Probably that was a bit harsh. I've got a very strong inner critic. However, I am leap years away from where I was in June, because I have control over my behaviour. I know where it's coming from. I know the urges. I know how to deal with it. I've got the toolkit is enormous. I'm not saying I'm infallible, however, though, Jen, I'm not. I have moments where I really want to drink. And I had one of those at my friend's wedding last week, and I drank, and then I felt awful. And I beat myself up about it. Left you a massive voicemail saying, I'm not going to, why would you want me on your podcast? I'm not good enough. I'm still on my journey, for sure. But then I don't think I'm ever going to get that ta-da moment where it's like, okay, I've nailed it. I'm never going to have a drink ever again in my life. But I'm at the point now, and where are we, like 8-9 months in, where I feel like in lots of situations I can take it or leave it. I was out last night at the pub. I didn't have anything. I've been out I've done so many things. I read at my another friend's wedding. I didn't drink. I could never have imagined that. So for me, Jen, it's all about keeping on putting myself into these situations where historically I would be drinking. And every time I don't, I get stronger. And every time I don't, I realize that it just isn't adding anything to my life. It's not giving me anything. It's just making everything a lot worse, especially the next day. So I think I'm in a really good place. And the fact that I'm still married is a bonus. And I've got a very good relationship with my daughter and my son. And it's so much more improved. they hate drunk mummy. They absolutely hate drunk mummy. They're at a stage where it was becoming very obvious. So I think I'm in a stage where I can handle it. I haven't cracked it. I haven't cracked it at all. But I'm not scared of it anymore. Whereas I was really scared at the summer. How do I live like this? How do I enjoy this wonderful life that I have without alcohol? And it's like, it seems so bizarre that I would even have thought that, because there's so much more.
Yeah.
And so much more. So I think that's where I am with it. I'm at peace. I'm at peace with it because I'm understanding myself.
Love that. So to go back to what you said, you left a voice message from your voice note with me last week saying, that's it, I'm not coming on the podcast. And I was like, this is exactly why you're coming on this podcast, because you're a human being. And it's not that we're not perfection. But what it is with you, Susie, is that you go through it, observe yourself, and then you work on yourself continuously, right? No, that might, from the outside, that sounds exhausting. It's not. We're just working on what's best for us. How do I learn from this, and how do I want to move forward? That's all that matters, right? And so thank you for sharing that story, because I think that's so important. It's not about not drinking. It's about going through it, understanding our emotions. And you're at your friend's wedding. Hey, I wanted to have a couple of drinks there. Again, anyone listening who don't know my story, I have changed my relationship. I changed my relationship with alcohol in 2018. I have a take it or leave it a couple of times a year at a selected time or not. So I'm at peace with going to a friend's wedding or an occasion with my ladies out or one evening. Maybe, but mostly not. But the point is that what you said, that maybe there won't be a eureka moment. There will be at some point, but it's not going to be like, ta-da! It's going to be like, huh. And so I'll tell you what mine was. It was saying to Rue way back when, I said, I think it's been 2 Fridays that I haven't even thought about having rosé, because that would be my thing. Like Friday, rosé time. And I said, I think 2 Fridays have passed and I hadn't had anything to drink, and I wasn't bothered. The attachment was gone. So that for me was my aha moment. But it wasn't like glory. It was just like realization, right? And so everyone gets this at some point. And I had a client the other day who was in the cohort, in the cohort before you. And he was just saying, I've just realized that I'm just not interested. I'm just interested because when it comes up, it pops up like, oh, celebration, it's this, it's after work, it's whatever it is. And he goes, I know, but I also I just know how I'll feel tomorrow and how it's going to affect me. And I'm not willing to take that right now. Maybe there will be one day and there'll be a given occasion and an appropriate time to do it, but not attached to it. And I was like, there it is. There's that moment, right? So there will be something for you as well but it's not going to be this ta-da.
No. And I'm someone who likes it. I like to tick things off my list. And I don't think this isn't ticked off.
Yeah. I can't measure this yet.
It's still work in progress. But boy, is it a million times improved. And I love, and I haven't mentioned this, I love how well I feel. Because I like being well. I like, my training at the gym everything has improved, right? And that's how I want to feel. I want to feel like that. I don't want to feel sluggish and not, and thinking, oh God, I've got to think today, or, I've got to, I don't want to start my days going, oh God, I've got to. I mean, I'm so over that. I love it when I'm waking up and going, I've done my meditation, I've done my journaling, I've done some stretching, I've gone to the gym, and then, then the day is set up. And the early mornings, I'm a morning person. I love the sunrise, right? I mean, it's my thing. So, I just don't really go out after 10 o'clock anymore.
There you go.
I'd be a bad vampire.
And many people say, oh, well, drinking is the only last fun thing I have. We need to have some fun too, right? And people say, well, if I don't drink, I'm going to become boring. It doesn't sound like you've become very boring at all. It sounds like you're just enjoying more and more fun.
No, and I'm doing it for me with addressing my boundaries. So I'm much better at picking and choosing and actually saying, no, I don't actually want to do that. And looking after what's good for me. Whereas before I'd just be like, well, I'm just going to go and then regret it.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. No, I'm definitely not boring, Jen.
No, gosh, no. Honestly, thank you so much for coming on to this podcast and sharing your story. And I know there's going to be a lot of people relating to this. And I think just to finish off, I feel like I've missed covering an area for you, which we've talked about in coaching so much. And I think this is an important piece to talk about. And that is when we women, those of us who become mothers, something tends to happen. We tend to maybe lose a little part of us, even if momentarily. And I see this in so many of my clients who come through. They kind of just feel like they lost themselves a little bit, and alcohol became that constant companion. Share a little bit about your story and your angle on that, because I think that's also powerful, and I think something many people can relate to.
So I had a marketing firm. I shut it down because we were going to go to Boston, and that didn't end up happening. But then I had my son very quickly after that, and then a daughter very quickly after that. I have a very hardworking husband, successful, and who was absent a lot of the time when the kids, especially in their preschool years. And I got very lonely, I think. I got very lonely. I wasn't very good at NCT type meeting other mothers. In fact, I would shy away from it. I really would shy away from it. And it would get to 6 o'clock, I remember, and it would be bath and bed. And I hated bath and bed. I don't know why, the routine of it. I was just literally, I think I was maybe a little bit depressed anyway. I would reach for the wine. It would probably start at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. And that would be my night. And I would get the kids to bed, and then I'd be on my own. And I couldn't go out because I had the kids upstairs, and my husband might be away. And I slowly and surely sort of lost all identity of who I had become. And I'm not saying I loved being a mother to young kids, but I felt very isolated, and I wanted my life I wanted to have my husband there with me all the time, but he wasn't. And so I got quite resentful, and then I would drink more because I was resentful. And then because the kids wouldn't know if I was drinking or not, because they were like tiny little kids. And I felt like all my power had gone, and I didn't know who I was anymore. And I'm not saying that I had a bad, it wasn't like it was a bad time in my life. It was just, I wasn't handling it very well. I didn't want to, I just felt very lonely, and alcohol became my buddy. And I would love, and then it got to the point, I guess, when the kids were about 5 or 6, where my husband had begun to notice quite how much I was drinking, and he'd get home, and I would surreptitiously hide my glass behind the sofa and start behaving like that. And that's when the problem started for me, when I started hiding. But I was doing it all because I wasn't happy, and I'd lost myself, and I got really insecure about my ability of who it was I wanted to be. And I lost my confidence. I think I just lost my confidence. I knew I should have put something in place where I had something extra, and I wasn't just staying at home. But we'd made the decision that I was going to stay at home with the kids, and I did love staying at home with the kids. But then when you do that, I think it does sort of misplace your true suit. I lost me.
Yeah.
And then when the kids started boarding school, so we're now in fast forwarding, I was still doing the same thing, Jen. I didn't have to look after kids anymore, but I was still finding myself behaving exactly the same thing. I mean, talk about a fixed mindset. I mean, mine was very fixed. And because the children were now at boarding school, I was able to go out at lunchtime and drink with my friends, not just in the evening. I mean, it was, that to me was wonderful. I could go out on a Monday afternoon and go to the pub and find a friend. Do you know what I mean? And that is why alcohol for me really made me lose sight of myself as a woman and what my capabilities were, because I completely lost my confidence. And I replaced it with this so-called friend who really wasn't a friend, and it left me with this just such a poor relation of myself, such a poor relation with myself. But I didn't know how to eject myself from either that, because it becomes such a habit and a behavior pattern. I had no idea how to get myself out of it. And actually, I was just like looking at other people who were doing exactly the same thing. But it's because I was surrounding myself with people who were doing exactly the same thing. It wasn't because that was the only people around who were doing, it was just, that's how I was behaving. And this complete control has really opened up my eyes to when you get that dependent on alcohol and you have lost all your self-confidence, and especially as a woman when your kids leave the nest, well, they haven't left completely, but when they don't need you so much and you've put so much energy into them and then they've gone, and you then put so much energy into alcohol, what does it then leave you when they don't need you anymore? And your husband has got all sorts of other wonderful things going on in his life. It doesn't, what's left for you? And there was just this big empty vacuum, or a big bottle of wine.
Yeah, right.
And so the bottle of wine would win. And as I said, because it seemed sort of normal that was going on, that I just kept doing it. And then it's only when you put it down, you realize, oh my God, my life isn't over at all. And it's full of opportunities. Now I realize that, because I'm not just constantly numbing myself. But prior to this course, I wouldn't have realized that. And I would have probably been a divorced single mother who had lots of lunches. But that's not me, that's not who I want to be. And so, I'd love to help other women figure this one out, that you don't have to be this woman who is not by any fault of their own, really, I don't think. I mean, I don't feel ashamed that I was like that, because I think lots of women do get to that point. They're just trying to find out where they've gone.
Yeah.
And the answer isn't in that.
It's not in the bottle, but it's also not easy, which is why change is hard, which is what you realize with the coaching and all that stuff. We have to really make an effort, right? And a lot of people feel like that might be too much for them to do. So they choose the easy way out, which is just keep drinking, right? And again, no judgment there. It's just kind of what what the society have done for so long. Celebrate, commiserate, happy, sad, whatever it is, we drink. A sports event, non-sports event. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
So, what would you say to listeners now, if anyone listening, thinking, oh gosh, I can relate so much to what you're saying, that's me, and oh gosh, what do I even do? What's the first step? What do I do for myself, to get out of the space where I'm in? I feel a little bit lost, just like you said, and feel like they lost themselves a bit. Like, what would you say? What are the first steps?
Stop drinking.
There you go.
No, I mean, but seriously, I mean, it's such a false friend, and it is such an individual thing, Jen. Because for me, it was self-confidence. I don't know what I would actually say. I just think you need to get out there. I'm not saying everyone needs to suddenly go and find a job and be the most successful businesswoman. That's not what I mean at all. But rather than going to the pub with your friends, go for a walk in nature and get yourself signed up to a gym. Look after yourself. Just because we're mature older women doesn't mean that you can't be the fittest you've ever been in your life. I mean, it's a whole myth, this whole, I'm going through the menopause, so therefore I put on weight. It's so not true. It's
It's an excuse. What do we do about it then?
Right? It's such an excuse. It's like, no, just be active, get out there and look after. I think the main thing I would say would be look after yourself. And alcohol makes you not look after yourself. It makes you want to pick out on the sofa and be lazy, right? I mean, it doesn't make you do anything. And as you get older, it makes you a really bad drunk. And it's really unattractive. So I would, look after yourself, eat well, sleep well, don't drink as much, and just look after your bodies, and your mind, all of it. I mean, I just want to do all of it. I want everyone to feel really well. I love feeling well. And that's what stops me from drinking too much, anyway, for sure.
Well, you feel well, you look well, and it's a pleasure continue watching you to grow. And there's still more to come. And so what I always say to the people, like, just because I'm a coach doesn't mean I've got everything put together. We're work in progress at all time. Susie, thank you so much. I really pleasure joining on the podcast and no doubt inspiring others. Particularly mums out there who feel like, maybe I'm a little bit stuck and see what I can do. Well, you know where to find us. You know what we can do for you. But whatever you decide to do, you just need to believe in yourself that you can do it, because we know you can and we believe in you. Susie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I'll see you on our next coaching call.
You will.
Thank you, everyone.